Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about something that connects, well, pretty much everyone who's ever built anything big. I'm talking industrial titans, modern investors, heck, even ancient Roman emperors. It's this hidden language, a skill that's been quietly building fortunes for centuries. All right, let's kick things off with a little bit of a mystery, right? You think about some of the most successful people in history. What do they all have in common? What was their secret sauce? You might guess, I don't know, engineering, maybe a fancy law degree, an MBA from some top-tier school. Well, the actual answer, it's probably not what you think. So it turns out their secret weapon wasn't some super complex, arcane subject. It's actually way simpler than that. For some of these giants, it all boiled down to just one class, a single class they took when they were just kids. So take this guy, John D. Rockefeller. Even when he was in his 90s, after building this massive Standard Oil empire, you know what he talked about? A 10-week accounting class he took when he was just a boy. He said that course, that one class, was what gave him everything he needed to get a handle on business, on risk, and of course, on profit. And wow, did he understand it. That one little class helped him build the foundation for a fortune that, if you translate it to today's money, it's a staggering $440 billion. Just let that sink in. That's the kind of power we're talking about from one subject. And it wasn't just Rockefeller, not by a long shot. Think about Henry Ford, the guy who basically invented the modern assembly line, right? We all think of him as this engineering visionary, but his actual formal training, it wasn't in mechanics. It was in accounting. He knew that to build a car for the masses, first, he had to be an absolute master of the costs. So this all leads us to a more modern legend, someone who really gave this powerful tool the name we know it by today. And it all happened because of a really, really unusual and honestly pretty inspiring wish. Okay, so picture this. It's 2014, and there's this 17-year-old kid named Trey. He's battling cancer, and he gets a chance from the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Now, he didn't ask for the usual stuff, No celebrity meet and greet, no dream vacation. No, his wish was to become an investment banker. It was so out there, so different, that it got the attention of CNBC. So they bring him on the air, but they had a little surprise up their sleeve for him. On the phone, live on air, was the one and only Warren Buffett. And when they asked him for his #1 piece of advice for this young guy, he didn't talk about hot stocks or what the market was going to do. He gave him one single, incredibly important piece of advice. And in doing so, he coined the phrase that really sums this whole thing up. Okay, so if accounting is a language, who invented it? Where did the rules, the grammar, come from? To figure that out, we've got to jump in the time machine and head back to 15th century Italy. A pretty wild time of merchants, math, and, believe it or not, monks. So before this big invention, keeping the books was, well, it was basically just storytelling. Think of Shylock's ledger in The Merchant of Venice. It's just a running list of who owes what, sometimes with some pretty gnarly consequences attached. It kind of worked for one-off deals, but once business started getting more complicated, it was a total mess. Really hard to see the big picture. And then this guy shows up, an Italian monk and a brilliant mathematician named Luca Pacioli. And in 1494, he drops this book that completely changes the game. He describes this revolutionary idea, the double entry system. For every transaction, you make 2 entries. It's a system that balances itself out. It brought order to the chaos. It was genius. He basically invented the modern accounting equation, and the impact was huge. This system was so elegant, so powerful, that the famous philosopher Goethe called it one of the greatest inventions of the human mind. Think about that. A philosopher saying that about bookkeeping. That tells you how big of a deal this was. But this core idea, using numbers to understand and manage things, it's even older than that. It goes way back. You can't run an empire on vibes alone. You need data. And for that, let's look at ancient Rome. This is just fascinating to me. Even the Emperor Augustus, the guy in charge of the entire Roman Empire, was basically running on spreadsheets. His accounts tracked everything, how much he was spending on gladiator fights, on public works, on temples, everything. And he used that info to decide, should we go to war? Can we afford to lower taxes? He was running one of the biggest empires ever, using numbers. The fundamental idea hasn't changed a bit. Good information leads to good decisions. All right, so we've bounced from ancient Rome all the way to Warren Buffett's office. We've covered a lot of ground. But now we get to the most important part, the big so what. What does any of this have to do with you? Yeah, I can see you thinking it now. After all this talk about billionaires and emperors, you're probably wondering, okay, I get it. It's a big deal. So, do I have to go become a certified accountant now, like enroll in a 4-year degree program? Let me be super clear on this. No, absolutely not. That is not the point here. Not even close. Look, the goal is not to become the accountant. The goal is to learn how to speak to the accountant. It's about learning just enough of the language to be effective, to understand the basic concepts, to know what's going on so you can ask the right questions, so you can look at a report and actually understand the story the numbers are trying to tell you about your own business or your investment. Because at the end of the day, it all comes back to what Buffett said. Think about it. If the point of being in business is to be profitable, and profit is a word that only has meaning because the counting, then it all boils down to one simple final question. How can you possibly expect to win the game if you don't even speak the language?